Hi, everybody. We're back with our 9 o'clock author chat. Our 9 o'clock chat is with author John David Anderson, well known for his books, Miss Bixby's Last Day and Posted, and who recently released the book Granted. So, welcome, Dave, and thank you so much for chatting with us this evening.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is just give us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll start sending you questions.
All right. So my name is John David Anderson, but only the federal government calls me John. Everybody else pretty much just calls me Dave. When I was 6 years old, I held a bunch of kids hostage on a playground with a butter knife. The first story I ever told was an enormous lie that I told to my parents after I'd colored the entire wall. I'd taken a bunch of colored markers and I started at the top of the wall, permanent markers, and I pressed them to the wall and I toddled down the stairs and I switched hands and I toddled back up the stairs until I colored the entire wall in 4 different color permanent markers. And my parents found out and they're like, David, why'd you color the entire wall? And I knew I had to think of something. So apparently I looked at them and I said, the wall talked to me and told me it wanted to be a rainbow, which of course is a terrible story. I know it's a terrible story because I still got in trouble for it. But I think at that moment I understood like the power of fictions, namely lies. And that's where we get our start telling stories. And I've been telling stories ever since. And I have since published 8 novels. Show them to you very quickly. They look like that. But I've probably written about 22 novels, which either says I'm a really bad writer or that publishing novels is really hard. What else? I'm addicted to chocolate, and well, we'll get into all the other stuff as it goes. But I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. I lived here most of my life. I live with my 2 darling kids, who are actually 13, but this is a cute picture that I keep of them, and my beautiful wife. And this is what we looked like when we were young and attractive. All right, so let's get to some questions, shall we? The first question is, can I give you a synopsis of my latest book, Granted? Absolutely. So this is the book. It's called Granted. It has a talking dog in it. Hello, talking dog. It's pretty wonderful. It is about a fairy who is assigned to grant a particular wish. So when you make a wish and you throw a coin into a well, and the fairies have to decide which of the millions of wishes made every day are ever going to be granted. And they basically like only allowed to pick 20 or 30. And when they pick those 20 or 30, they send a fairy out into the world to grant that wish. And Ophelia has to grant this wish, but when she gets to the coin, it gets taken away from her and she has to chase it down, and all sorts of hilarity ensues. And she meets a talking dog named Sam. And when she finally ends up getting a hold of the coin that the wish is made on, she realizes there are 2 wishes made on the same coin. And she has to decide which wish she's going to grant. Is she going to grant the one that could mean the end of fairy life as she knows it, or the one that will break her heart? So it's not an easy decision to make. And it's very much about the things that we want and the price that we're willing to pay to get them. All right, question number 2. Ophelia Delphinium fidgets as a fairy who gets real-life experience in the human world on her way to grant a wish. Once there, she begins to question how things are done. What ideas were you hoping to get across to kids about making decisions that may be different than what's expected? Wow, that was like a dissertation. That was too many words. What message was I hoping to get across to kids? What did you wish for when you were young, right? Did you wish for a new bicycle? Did you wish for your mother to leave you alone? Did you wish for your brother to be eaten by an alligator? I don't know. I think it's interesting when we think about how our wishes and our needs and our wants change over time. And everything is relative, right? So everybody has something more that they want. But something that I want compared to something that somebody who's living in poverty wants, completely different. And so one of the things I wanted people to think about with the novel Granted was this idea of scale and proportion, and this notion that some things have a value that is just way beyond any monetary value that we could ever give it. It's just intrinsic value, and it's really hard to judge. And a lot of that has to do with emotional connection and obviously the people you love and the things that you believe in. All right. Question number 3. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be numbering these questions, but I'm going to anyways. When did I start writing? Man, I mean, when did you start storytelling? Right? You probably have all written things. You probably wrote stories when you were in elementary school. So did I. They were terrible. They were super violent. Most of the time, I had people getting beheaded because I don't know. I was weird. I really didn't start writing in earnest, though, until I was in high school. And that's when I discovered this guy. Hello. His name is Kurt Vonnegut Jr. Say hi to the audience, Kurt Vonnegut Jr. Hi, says Kurt Vonnegut Jr. Kurt Vonnegut Jr. is an Indiana author. He's pretty wonderful, and I fell in love with all of his books when I was in high school. More than that, I fell in love with the way this guy wrote books. And I thought, wow, if I could manipulate language the same way that this guy manipulates language, then I'd be pretty pleased with myself. And it was at that point, I think, in high school that I started to study writing and started to study literature and storytelling and all that artistic stuff to try and get better and better and better. And I'm still working on it. All right. What's the most fulfilling thing to you about writing books for children? Wow. I mean, kids and even, young adults and young people have limber imaginations, and that's really fantastic. Like you can get away with a lot of stuff, which is really cool. And they have fantastic senses of humor. They're just starting younger kids are just starting to learn how to use sarcasm and irony, right? So you can sort of be your normal smart aleck self like I am. But the main thing that I think is exciting about writing for young people is that, it's when you're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 that you first are given the capacity to question things about the world. It's when you're first given the agency to look out into the world and say, all right, I don't quite buy that, right? All the stuff that's been fed to me by my parents and my teachers, it's all well and good, but there are other possibilities out there. And that's what fiction does, is it allows us to explore all these other possibilities, which is really neat. I mean, it allows me to explore them as an author. It allows you to explore them as a reader. And so I think one of the most exciting things about writing books for kids is that it allows kids to ask questions. And it gives them a polishable answer, but then it gives them the inspiration to maybe go out and find answers for themselves. Boy, that was deep. What is the most challenging aspect of writing? Not getting fat. That's definitely the hardest part. I think revision is incredibly hard. Like it gives me great big headaches. And for that reason, I tend, when I am revising books, to eat a lot of chocolate and eat a lot of Pringles and basically just stuff myself silly, stress eating, basically. And so the only way that you could be an author and not die of a heart attack, I think, by the age of 30, is to also get some exercise. Because I sit in this chair. Here, let me show you my chair. Chair where I write all of my books. Hello, chair. And if you look really closely at this chair, you might notice there are two grooves in the chair, right? Right here and right there. Those are my butt grooves. I have made those grooves by sitting in this chair now for about 12 years, writing books over and over and over again. And so it's that sitting in the chair constantly and the eating of the Pringles and the chocolate and all that stuff that really gets you, right? That make me feel guilty. All right. What is my favorite word? Dinner is good. Breakfast, lunch, both of those are good. I really like the word inconceivable, but that's just because I'm a big fan of The Princess Bride. I like any word that has some oomph behind it. I like made up curse words a lot. In my book, Granted, the fairy Ophelia Delphinium Fidgets, she has to make up a bunch of curse words, because we're not allowed to say bad words in middle grade fiction, and I don't. But I can say fiddle bottom, right? Or fart nugget, or any of those things. And so I do like words that you make up that are supposed to be substitutes for words that you're not allowed to say. My least favorite words are probably words that have to do with vomit. So vomit or barf is pretty bad because when I think of those words, I actually imagine them making this sort of monopoetic sound, right? Barf, right? Or vomit or whatever it is. And so those words just kind of make me sick just to think about. Hopefully I'm not making you sick right now. All right, question number 8. What scares me? I am not afraid of spiders or snakes or heights. I am not afraid of, I don't think anything that sort of is out there real, like fire or anything like that. Scorpions are pretty creepy, that's for sure. Like centipedes and millipedes, I'm not big fans of those, but I wouldn't say I'm afraid of them. So I'm pretty much afraid of like serious, like the internal stuff, like I'm afraid of losing the people I care about. I'm afraid of my kids inheriting a world that is basically a big pile of donkey doo because the adults in the world seem to be screwing it up as fast as they possibly can. I'm scared of ignorant people. And I won't name names or anything like that. But I think the thing that I'm scared of most is probably failure. Like as an author, as an artist, when you found a little bit of success, and I'm not famous by any stretch, but yeah, I've found a little bit of success. I'm able to do what I love for a living. And I think when you find that amount of success, you're deathly afraid of losing it. So now for me, whenever I come out with a book, my fear is that nobody's going to like the book. And as a result, I'm not going to be able to keep doing what I love. And that is terrifying, right? So please tell me you like the book. All right. Question number 9. What makes me laugh? What doesn't make me laugh? Man, I laugh at everything all the time. My kids make me laugh. My wife makes me laugh. Monty Python really makes me laugh. Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy totally makes me crack up. Most things that are ridiculous and absurd make me laugh. I think the key to writing anything is to include some kind of humor and give it some kind of levity. I wrote a book called Miss Bixby's Last Day, which is about a teacher who has cancer. And these 3 boys who decide they're going to break her out of the hospital to give her the last day that she deserves. And I mean, this is pretty heavy duty stuff. And there's other things in there that are going on. One of the characters' dad is like a quadriplegic and whatever, or paraplegic. And like they're having friendship problems. And then, of course, there's the possibility that their teacher could die at any moment. And there's all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this book is really a downer. And the only way that I could write that book was to include as much humor as possible. And so in that book, I try to make fun of a lot of different things. And I think that's one of the keys to going through life is when tragedy strikes, when sadness strikes, it's not about looking at the bright side. It's about looking at the absurd side. It's about finding something absolutely ridiculous and just laughing in the face of it, because that's the only way that we can cope. Question number 10. What is my favorite food? I am kind of famous, more famous than for writing. I am actually more famous, I think, for my love of chocolate. I am a chocolate fiend. I like chocolate in just about any form. My favorite chocolates are dark chocolate sea salt with caramel, Trader Joe's. Oh my God, those things are so good. Like you bite into them and the caramel, it's like this liquid, gooey caramel, right? And it just sort of gushes out of your mouth, right? It's like a fountain. It's like a waterfall of gooey caramel. And it's like gushing out of your mouth and it gets in your beard, if you have a beard like me. And then you like save it for later. And then later, like 3 hours later, you're just like, because there's a little bit of caramel right there. And you just have to, oh, it's so good. But that's not even my favorite food. My favorite food is greasy pizza. I could eat greasy pizza to the cows come home, man. That is the best stuff. I'll eat it when it comes in. I'll eat it 3 days later. It doesn't matter. I would just keep eating pizza for sure. Question number 11. I feel like we should be doing like a Dave Letterman kind of countdown. And then I just realized that you guys probably have no idea who David Letterman is. Anyways, if you had to choose a career other than the career that I currently do, what career would I choose? Well, that absolutely depends on whether or not I have to be any good at the career that I'm thinking of, because I have very few talents. I am a halfway decent writer, and short of that, I don't know. I can do some funny voices. That's about it. I'm a pretty decent Galaga player, but not like professional in any stretch. So I think if it would be anything, it would probably be teaching. I did teach for a while and I do enjoy it. But if I could pick something that I did have to put at, that would be my job, then I would definitely be a Lego designer. because I love Legos. And in fact, my entire office is covered in Legos. I don't know if you can see back there. There's the Lego Death Star and AT-ATs, and there's Legos all over the place. And so I'd be the guy who actually like sits there in his office in Denmark or Sweden or whatever Lego is. I think it's Denmark. And just sits there and builds like all day, making things up for other people to spend all of their income on, like me, because those guys are awesome. All right. What profession would I never want to do? Most of them. This is the whole reason that I got into writing, is so that I wouldn't have to have a real job. My commute is basically 10 stairs, right? I go down 10 stairs. I'm at work. I go to work in my pajamas most days. I set my own hours. I'm my own boss. I take my own vacations whenever I want to. Being an author is the greatest job in the world. I'll be honest. And so I'm going to list like every other job is a job that I kind of don't want to do. But there are some that are really horrible. Like I could never be a truck driver. I'm a terrible driver. I would kill everybody on the road. And plus I would be so bored, right? I admire the people who do that. I could never be a politician. I'm just too honest with what it comes down to. What else? I could never be a mayonnaise tester because mayonnaise, I'm sorry, for those of you who love it, I just think it's nasty. Pickle manufacturer, not a big fan of those either. So there's probably quite a few jobs, right? Sewer cleaner, outer, dead rat collector, right? That doesn't sound good at all. Yeah, podiatrist, right? Aren't those the guys that like mess around with your feet? Oh, nasty. So those of you who want to be podiatrists, like more power to you, but nothing. All right, doing well. Question number 13. What is your favorite place to travel to? I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I don't know if any of you have ever been to Indianapolis, Indiana. I don't even know where you are. But wherever you are, you probably haven't been here unless you're a big fan of like race cars or basketball, maybe. But I can tell you that it's pretty much a great big city situated in the middle of a whole bunch of cornfields. As a result, I like to go on vacation anywhere where there's a beach. Anywhere where there's the ocean, I will be there because I love the waves and I love looking out at the vast expanse, imagining that the world has absolutely no end. And I love the fact that, you know, when you get hot, you can actually go in the water and you don't just have to suffer in 95 degrees with like 100% humidity, which is ridiculous. If there's no water around, there's got to be water. Where's water? So anywhere with a beach is just fine. Hawaii, right? I just went to Costa Rica. That was really cool. But it really doesn't matter. Question number 14. What do you like to do in your downtime? Well, you can probably already tell I like to play with Lego. That's kind of a one. I love to hike. I'll hike just about anywhere. What else do I do? I read a lot, obviously. In fact, if you're going to be a writer, one of the things that you absolutely have to do is read like at least a book a week, just to keep the language part of your brain ever flowing, ever fresh, and see what other people are doing, right? Which is really cool. What else do? I play video games. I'm terrible. I've only played Fortnite once. I got killed instantly. So that's obviously not my thing. I'm more of a Mario Kart, Super Mario Brothers kind of guy. I play board games with my family, which is fun. What else do I like to do? I like to embarrass my kids. I like to embarrass my wife. I like to go out to eat. I run quite a bit, but I wouldn't say that I enjoy it. It's just something that I do. Question number 15. Do I have any distinct memories or interactions in a library or with a librarian? So I guess what we're asking is, was there ever a time when an evil librarian realized what my overdue fines were and decided to chain me up in her dungeon or whatever? And no, that's never happened. I do remember being a kid and going into our public library and going straight to the Nate the Great books to see if there was any new Nate the Great books that I had never read. Because I was like, I knew the author, so I went straight to that section and search for that, and then I'd go to Dr. Seuss and whatever it is. And I always knew I was only allowed to check out 10 books, and it was like a serious thing, right? And you only get 10 books, and there's like 30 that you want. And so you pick the ones that you can read really fast just while you're sitting there. while your mom's checking out all the other books. And then you get the ones that were longer, and those are the ones that you take home. And I love libraries. I mean, I think libraries are the most amazing thing. In fact, I have a 4-bedroom house, and I'd venture to say out of all the rooms in this house, 80% of them are probably libraries. We turned our dining room into a library. We turned our playroom into a library. I think we pretty much turned our family room into a library. Most of our bathrooms are basically just libraries. Just put books everywhere. Make your entire house just one giant library. All right. Question number 16. What have you read in the last year? I honestly cannot remember everything that I've read in the last year. Neither can you guys, I'm sure. I am in the middle of City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, which you guys are probably familiar with. It's like some cool series, you know, vampires and demons and people who slay the demons, and it's pretty exciting, thrilling stuff. I would say the books that I've liked recently, I've read a lot of Jason Reynolds. That guy's pretty hot. He's writing some really good stuff right now. So if you haven't read anything by Jason Reynolds, you should definitely go check it out. Ruta Sepetys, Salt of the Sea. It's probably the best book that I've read in the last year or so. So yeah, that's something. I don't tend to reread books, but if there is one book that I would say you probably should read if you think your sense of humor is anything like mine, it would be Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I think that I'm going to have to put that on my list for a reread here soon. All right, question 17. Who is my favorite fictional character? I actually got these questions in advance, and so I had time to think of them. And then I did what most people do when they get stuff in advance. I just put it off because I'm a procrastinator. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll just think of that when the time comes. And this was like the one question where I really just sat down and gave it some thought. And I had so many to choose from that it was almost impossible just to pick one. Like Zaphod Beeblebrox, if you've never heard of him, he's pretty awesome. But if I'm going to Winnie the Pooh, love Winnie the Pooh. But if I'm going to pick one who is my favorite fictional character, I'm probably going to pick Hermione Granger. Obviously, Harry Potter would have died 85 times over if it wasn't for Hermione. So she is pretty much the hero of those stories. Let's face it. All right. Question number 18. What is my favorite TV show / movie / band? I don't know if I can get to choose those, but I'll go ahead and just throw out one for each of them. TV show. All right. Guilty pleasure, I gotta say it. And I don't know how old my audience is, right? Because I can't see you. You can only see me, but it's Game of Thrones. That stuff is awesome. So if you're not old enough to watch Game of Thrones yet, then you know you can either wait till you're older or you can sneak it, I'm sure, from the internet and watch behind your back. Whatever works best for you. No, don't do that. That's terrible advice. I don't want you to get in trouble. But when you're old enough, you should totally watch it. It's very compelling. My favorite movie of all time has to be Empire Strikes Back. I'm kind of a Star Wars junkie. I have been trying to use the Force now for like the last 30 years, and I still haven't managed to do it. I'm also a big fan of anything by Spielberg, you know, Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Close Encounter, like all that stuff. E.T., love it. Jurassic Park, man, great stuff. So big Spielberg Lucas kind of fanatic guy there. All right. And my favorite band. I don't really have a favorite band. I listen to just about anything. I listen to jazz. I listen to classical. I listen to rock. I listen to alternative. I listen to a lot of Mumford and Sons and a lot of Imagine Dragons. And now I listen to Beethoven. Like, that guy rocks my world. You should have Beethoven if you've never heard of him. All right. Is there an author that I would totally freak out about meeting in real life? So there used to actually be an answer to this question. And the answer to this question was an author by the name of Kate DiCamillo. I had read pretty much everything Kate wrote and fallen in love with her writing style. And I was like, totally, like, if I could ever meet her, then I would freak out completely. I would be total fangirl, like, Kate, there you are. I've had the chance now to meet Kate twice, and I hope I didn't go complete fanboy on her. I don't think I did. I think I maintained my composure. And so there's probably not an author now that's living that I think I would just sort of like melt into a puddle over. Certainly 1,000 authors that I would be completely intimidated by. And I would be like, I worship you like a god. But I don't think I would like pee my pants. But there's a lot of authors who have since passed away that I would just be flabbergasted, right? If I ever met Mark Twain, for example, then I would just explode head on like that. All right, number 20. There are audio versions of your books. Did you have any involvement in that production? Have you listened to the recordings? The answer to every one of those questions is no. Actually, there are only two questions. The answer to both of them was no. I don't get any, well, I don't get any involvement. I actually get to pick the voice, kind of. They'll give me a selection of 3 different voices, and I get to pick one that I think best fits with the novel, which is kind of cool. I feel uber powerful when I do that. But I got to be perfectly honest. I've never sat and listened to one of my books being read all the way through. In fact, after it's published, I have never sat and read any one of my books, because once my book is published, I feel like there's nothing I can do to change it, and that would just drive me crazy. So just listening to it or reading it, I would find a million things that I wanted to do differently or I wanted to do better. And then you're like, well, John David Anderson, why didn't you do them better the first time? I just ran out of time, right? Or maybe I wasn't as good a writer then as I am now. Or maybe I'm just fickle. I don't know what it is. But that's the reason I don't go back to it, is because I'm afraid that I won't be as happy with it as I was when I tuned it in the first time. However, that being said, I've heard that the audio versions of my books are fantastic. In fact, the audio version of this book, granted, this came out, won an award for like one of the best audio books of the year. So if that's your thing, if you prefer to listen to somebody else read books to you, which is really cool, like by all means, go about it, then maybe that's one to pick up. All right. Question number 21. Oh, what project am I currently working on? I have a novel that comes out next year. It'll come out next summer, I think, next June, maybe. It's called Finding Orion. There's not a whole lot that's been listed about it, no cover yet, but I will give you the quick pitch. Orion, otherwise known as Ryan, thinks he's the only normal person in his family. Maybe you think you're the only normal person in your family, right? His sisters, he thinks they're all bizarre. He thinks his dad's a weirdo, his mother's a quack, whatever. At the end of the first chapter, there's a knock on the door. And there's a clown at the door. And the clown basically gives them a singing telegram. And the singing telegram says, "Lottie, Lottie, Lottie, your grandpa died." I'm like, what? That's kind of crazy. Like, why would a clown tell us our grandfather's dead? And so they call crazy Aunt Gertie, and they're like, "Crazy Aunt Gertie, is it true? Is grandpa dead?" And they're like, yeah, the funeral's weekend. Why don't you come up? And they're like, of course we're going to come up. Grandfather. So they go to the funeral, and then after the Elvis impersonators and the marching band and the taco trucks and all the crazy stuff, the dad goes to open up the casket to say goodbye to Grandpa and discovers something terrible. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, because obviously that would spoil it, just to say that hilarity ensues, as it often does, hopefully, in my books. And they go on a big scavenger hunt, and there's a ferret and a python and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's a crazy, kooky book, but it's also got some heart to it. All right, question number 22. What advice would I give to my teenage self? Don't worry, the acne goes away. It takes a while, right? It may not be until after you get out of college, but you will get over it. And in fact, apply that to everything. It all gets better, unless it's great, at which point maybe it gets worse. I don't know. I didn't think it was that swift, especially in middle school, so it got better from there. So I would say, like, stick it out, man. Follow your dreams. Don't give up on the writing thing, even though it seems like it's never going to go anywhere. Because the truth of the matter is, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish most things. You can't accomplish anything. There are definitely things that are outside of your talent. There are definitely things that are outside of your ability. There's definitely things that are outside of your resources. But the imagination and the creative spirit are very, very powerful forces. And so I would remind myself to do that. I would also tell myself that the cute girl that you went bowling with is definitely the one for you. So don't even bother looking around for anybody else. All right. Final question. Do I have any advice for aspiring writers? I do, but if I gave it to you, then obviously you would become a better writer than I would. And then you would write books, and then your books would sell more than my books, and then I would stop selling books. So I probably shouldn't give it to you. I'm going to anyways, just because I'm nice like that. So here's what you need to do if you're an aspiring writer. First off, you need to eavesdrop on every conversation. You basically need to steal stuff from as many different places as you can. You just follow, your crazy grandmother's stories, the things you overhear at a restaurant, whatever it is, right? The conversations that your kids have with your friends, you write all that stuff down, you fiddle with it, you maneuver it around, you stick it in a book somewhere. Because a lot of what you write about ends up coming from your life experience. The other things you need to do, you need to read constantly as much as possible, as many different authors, people you love, the people other people love, see how people do what they do. You need to write every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes, even if it's a stupid grocery list. I don't care. The act of putting words on paper is a powerful act, and you need to do it every day if you want to be a writer. And I think it's just that sort of repetition and practice is going to make you better and better. The more that you're exposed to, the more stories you hear, the more stories you read, then you're going to find that you have your own way of spinning those stories and making them your own, making them creative, and adding your own voice to it. And then the last thing, of course, absolutely, chocolate, right? You need to reward yourself. Whenever you complete a poem or a short story or you finish that novel, whatever it is, just go to town. Gorge yourself. Eat as much as you possibly can. And then, do it again. Just keep eating. It's good stuff. So, yeah, reward yourself. Read as much as possible. Write every day and love what you do. And if you don't want to be a writer, I think those things still apply. Be creative, be imaginative, be curious, explore new things, and obviously be the best at that one thing that you want to be good at as you possibly can.
All right, everybody, that wraps up our author chat with John David Anderson. Thank you so much for answering all of our questions. I know I was giggling, so
No problem.
I was entertained and very much appreciated your time.
Okay. I didn't say anything wildly inappropriate, did I?
Not at all. I had a good time.
Okay, good.
So our next author chat will be at 10 p.m. with author Sarah J. Schmidt. So we will see you again at 10 p.m.